Hello, I'm David Hunt and welcome to my little section of Bent TV, which is normally amazing people from our community, but it's usually the old farts that I talk to, but not today. This person's on the rise. Wow, wait until you hear what they're up to. It's incredible. Trans person, and we'll talk about that. Amazing weight loss and working towards that as well right now. Has lived in China, Canada, off hiking in Japan soon. Is there any stopping? But there isn't, because wait until you hear some of the adventures that are just about to happen. Evalyn Venture, hello and welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
That's my pleasure. Now let's talk about it. You're on this journey, a trans journey. When did you realise that who you were?
I knew I was different when I was in my teen years, and I didn't really figure it out until I was about 19. That's when the internet was starting to come of age.
Yep.
So that's when I worked it out, but I kept it quiet. I kept it suppressed, and I didn't do anything about it until I was in my mid-30s.
You've changed your name and your surname as well. How did your parents feel about that?
Obviously, it was a bit of a shock, but it's my mother changed her name when she got married, and my sister did, and it's just a name. It's not a slight on them.
Yep.
And it's not a slight on my heritage or my lineage.
Yeah.
None of that's changed. It's just my title.
You travelled around a fair bit, growing up. You're originally from Perth, and then went back there a little bit later. But how did you end up in China, for instance, living there?
I moved there in 2018. I went to teach English at a university.
Oh, okay.
It's in a city called Zibo in Shandong province. So that's about halfway between Beijing and Shanghai. It's a small city, about the size of Brisbane. You never heard of. But
that is a small city in China, isn't it?
It is a small city. It's a tier 2 city. But it's so I taught at the university there. I lived on the campus, and I was there for just shy of a year.
Did you like it? Was it it would have been so different?
It was an exceptional experience. I travelled during mid-semester breaks and during my time off. So I went to a lot of museums and went and saw obviously the Great Wall, the Terracotta Warriors, all the things that China's famous for.
Whoa.
And I used it as a base to explore Asia. So I'll get a few weeks off in between semesters. And I went to Cambodia and Singapore and whatnot.
And you could move freely around in those days, yeah?
Yes. So this is before COVID, and it's before the tensions that China's currently experiencing with a lot of Western nations, including Australia.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of had a few issues, being the cultural barrier, the language barrier and whatnot, but you get that in any foreign place.
Yeah.
But no, it was largely free of restrictions.
Right, okay. So, Canada, you went to live there for a bit?
Yes, so that was in 2012.
Okay, ages ago.
Yes, it's over a decade now. I went and did a ski season there in British Columbia, in a ski resort called Big White.
Right, okay. And the Canadians love their skiing, because it snows so much there. How did you find Canada? I've never been, and I would love to go there because they're very similar to us in a lot of ways, aren't they?
They are. It's like America, but more Australian.
Yep.
It's big in terms of size and the cars and the food, and everything is just massive. The geography is insane, and the mountains are impressive, and the people are very friendly. But they don't take themselves as seriously as Americans do. So it's kind of like a hybrid between somewhere between US and Australia.
Well, they've got that sort of English sense of humour a bit, which obviously we do as well. Okay, so you're going off hiking to Japan, and how long are you going to be spending hiking in Japan?
So I'm going May next year, and I'm going to do the Henro Shinkoku. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which is a pilgrimage trail around it's 88 temples.
Wow.
And it takes about 6 weeks to 2 months.
Wow, fantastic. That sounds just absolutely awesome, because you go through these tiny, I've seen sort of a doco on a similar thing, and you go through these really, really tiny ancient towns, and I could imagine the people will be really friendly, although the language problem will be. Are you trying to learn a bit of Japanese or not?
I learned a lot of Japanese in high school,
Okay.
so I can read a lot of it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, I went there in 2017 as well, so I know the country pretty
Okay,
well.
right.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I wanted you on is because like you're involved in Joy. You have a show on Joy, but you also a podcast, and you podcast Sundance Magazine, which I'm involved in, and you do so much there as well. When we were talking one day, you were saying that you want to be a politician. Why?
I've experienced a lot of hardship growing up. Not family-wise, it's in terms of societal issues, because of being trans and the discrimination and things like this. There's things that I want to change with like Medicare and with the taxation system and things like that to make things easier for people in minority groups, including the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And given that I'm from I've lived in many places in Australia, I want to be able to be able to serve everyone, not just a small area.
Yeah, so federally.
Yeah, so federal.
When are you starting that quest, or have you already started to make inroads with it?
I've already started. I plan to run for council next year to get some good experience up and to help the local community.
Yep.
And I plan on running in 2025.
Because there's so many areas you can get involved in with government. Is it Senate?
I'm thinking Senate,
because
it's a 6-year term, and because it will give me that's the kind of time frame I think I'll need to do what I want to do. But anything's possible. Could be House of Reps, could be,
You need all the support and all as much, friends along the way to help you, because it's a very sort of nasty world it can be, can't it?
There needs to be more voices in Parliament, not just federal, but state as well, and local government. There needs to be more voices from people from minority groups.
Yep.
Because we are generally overlooked because we don't have a voice.
But you're not going to stop there. You told me that you want to put on an event that's going to be bigger. I'm saying that, people, bigger than Live Aid. What the hell are you thinking here? And what's that all about?
Still very much in the early stages.
Yeah, of course.
But what I want to do is to have a musical concert with a lot of the best artists in the world stage simultaneously at about a dozen stadiums all around Australia on the same day, and raising money for charity, for LGBT charities.
And will it be all queer artists on the different stages, or is it open to everyone?
Either queer or an ally.
That's a big dream. That's once you're a politician. Is that the idea, or maybe that might come first?
I'm doing them both simultaneously. They're both very lofty goals, and if I wait to complete one, I'm chipping away at both at the same time. So
one of your jobs, you have multiple jobs, is actually working at a venue. So is that why you're doing it? To get an insight on how events work? How did you find that? Was it daunting when you first looked into it, that there are so many little bits and pieces that goes on behind the scenes to put an event on?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's I like that kind of thing though. I like to see how things work behind the curtain. And it's an inspiration every time as well. Every time I go to the stadium and I'm working, I can visualize filling it up and having this concert, and it's a constant reminder and a constant source of inspiration. So
what do you think about like the Taylor Swift, who's coming and playing the MCG, and I think it's 3 nights now, isn't it? And there's going to be over 100,000 people each night, and the tickets just sold out, bang, like that. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is.
The amount of organisation behind that would be astronomical, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So would you, like go on to do other things like, other events before, or are you just going to go all hell loose on this big event?
No, so I'm aiming for the major event. So I want to do it on Ida Hobbit in a few years' time. So it's going to be about raising awareness of the issues
Yep.
and to raise funds.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you going to pull in other people to help you with it? Like how are you going to do it? Because, like as I said, it's so daunting and there's so much to do, and you would have to be looking at engaging one of the like music promoters, wouldn't you, to help you set it up?
Yeah. I'll be looking for help as I go. Obviously, because I want to do it for charity and to raise money for the charity, the cost is going to be a consideration. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
And it's going to take many years.
Yeah.
To make it.
So how far down the track are you thinking that this might happen?
Maybe 4 or 5 years' time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's if everything goes to plan.
Right.
I've already started approaching some potential stakeholders. So.
Right. Okay. So you're looking at ambassadors, as in music people. Have you got anyone in mind? You don't have to say anyone, but you've got anyone in mind that you'd think, yeah, I'd like them to be part of it?
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet of about 200 something artists that I plan to approach.
Okay. And when are you going to start doing that? Like that would be a little bit down the track, I suppose, would it?
So I'm working on getting the support of the venues first, and once I do that, and I'll start looking at sponsors to come on board to bankroll it, to at least cover the expenses until the money comes in from the ticket sales, things like this.
Sponsorship would be a major part of it. So people out there, if you're at all interested in doing something, and what an amazing coup for Australia as well, to be doing it on a world stage. So you'd bring in people from overseas to perform as well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking of probably a few stadiums in each city.
Oh, right. All on the one day?
All on the same day.
Wow.
So in Perth, Adelaide,
Yep.
Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sydney.
Yep. So you do maybe Melbourne and Geelong or something like that? Or?
Yeah, there's like several stadiums.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of also having artists hop between stadiums. So they have a few key acts jumping in between.
Yep.
So instead of having like the MCG's got 100,000 people, if you include all the stadiums at Melbourne,
yep,
and the artist sings half a dozen songs and goes to another stadium, suddenly the potential audience for that artist is 500,000 people.
Yeah. Well, that's what they did with Live Aid. I think some of them actually flew from England to America and back the other way as well to perform at the different stages. There was only 2 venues there. Like this is very ambitious, having multiple venues. Do you think that maybe you'll change your mind on that front, or you're pretty gung-ho that that's the way it will be?
So Live Aid was 2. It was in England and in the US, in Philadelphia and London. And they did Live 8, which was a few decades later. And that was 8 cities all around the world.
I don't even remember that one.
Yeah. It was also for famine.
Yep.
But yeah, this one's going to be about a dozen stadiums.
Right, okay. And what about name? Have you come up with a name yet for it?
Yes.
You have, but you're not going to tell us?
Not yet.
It's not a world exclusive that we're going to hear
the trademark's still pending, so until what goes through, yeah.
Right, okay. And how hard was it to come up with the name? Like, did you have to sort of, weigh up all the situations, or was it pretty straightforward what the name was going to be?
Without giving it away, part of my history of things that I've done, it's an inclusive term.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. So what is the main message that you want to get out there with this concert tour? Because it's so ambitious, and you can't have too many agendas. It's got to be, Live Aid was pretty straight up and down what it was for. Is that what you're doing here? Is it? Have you worked out exactly the focus of where it's going to be?
Yeah, it's all about equality and inclusion. About joy, love, friendship, camaraderie, and generosity. People go to these things. They're going to have the time of their life. They're going to have an experience, an event that will be talked about for generations, and in doing so, raise funds for. So what I've done is I'm going to have a charity in each state for the stadiums where all the events are being held, and the money will be divided up in between them.
Okay.
So,
So different charities in different
about
states.
six charities.
Right. Oh, that's a good idea. So when are you going to start engaging those charities and like getting the ball rolling in that respect? Have you got a timeline for that?
Once I've got the support of the venues, I need to be able to make sure they actually got a place to stage it first.
Yep.
And obviously there's many of them.
Yep.
But once a few of them come on board, I imagine it'll be a process that goes very quickly. And then I'll get the endorsements from the charities, and then I'll start approaching the sponsors.
My background is with record companies, international record companies, and knowing what venues are like, it's all about the dollar to them. They say they care about the charities and whatever, but it's not, and rightly so, because we've got to pay the bills. Wouldn't they go, nah, not interested until you got sponsors or this, that, and the other? Have you thought that might be the case? So the venues won't come on board until you've got security of sponsors?
You could look at it the other way as well. The sponsors won't come on board until you have a place to do it, especially something this big in multiple places. A lot of the stadiums and whatnot I plan to do it in are government owned, so they should be forthcoming, especially if I get elected, and I'll have, hopefully a bit of insight there. But it's once a few of them come on board, I imagine in fear of missing out, they'll all fall in line. And I'm hoping they'll do it at cost or close to it, drawing from or deferring the proceeds, deferring the fees until the proceeds come in. So there's a lot of planning to go into it. And like I said, it's still very much early stages.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think, and it's a perfect platform here today, is to be letting the viewers know and be aware of what you're doing, and maybe people might come out of the woodwork to help and support you. Would you be open to that, having people now come on board to help?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to need so much support to make it happen. Yeah. So, here you are, you've got, like being a politician, but before that you're going hiking in Japan, which I think is just amazing. So politician, hiking, a major event that's going to stop the world when it happens. What else is there?
Isn't that enough?
Good answer. Good answer. Because I was hoping that you were going to say that, because what will happen is politicians, so many other little things will come along, and you'll discover more and more. And this event, when it happens, and if it happens as big as you hope it will, and I believe that you probably will make it happen, that will open so many doors for you as well. So, like maybe Prime Minister of Australia down the track, take it.
First trans head of state.
Yeah. Hey, and, have you thought of that?
No. Look, I'll be happy to get into federal politics to have my say on trying to influence the laws and making life better. Those kind of things. It's so grandiose to actually plan for something like that.
Although our current Prime Minister, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. He loves his music, he loves his sport. He's just a regular guy, and that's what I think is the key, where some of our ex-prime ministers haven't been there. They've been a little bit too lofty, and I think being natural and being yourself is the key, isn't it? So what is going to be, like you're talking about going to council first, what is your main issues? I know vaguely what you mean, but you have to have a platform, a real solid platform.
I think there's too much inequality in society, so I think the taxation system needs an overhaul. There are too many people that earn a lot and don't contribute, like the big mining companies and the big tech companies and things like this.
Oh, the tech companies, whoa.
They could,
trillions is like some of them now. I read something the other day, trillions, whoa.
Yeah, they don't pay their share. There are some Fortune 500 companies that pay less tax than you and I do. And that's got to change. There are too many people who are struggling that pay too much tax. So I would try to change the tax brackets. I would try to change GST so it's more equitable. So people, they pay their fair share basically. It'll raise the cost of living. I'll put like taxes on the resources, like the sovereign wealth fund, like Norway has. They tax their gas and their oil and things like this. We're pillaging the environment, taking all the minerals out, and the Australian public gets very little in return. All right. And we've got so much resources here. It's incredible. We've got so much gas and uranium, gold, rare earth elements. We've got so much here, and we don't benefit from it.
Yep.
So I'll try to do that. I think there's issues with Medicare, and speaking as a transgender person, things like gender affirming care, none of that is looked after. Someone who has had weight loss surgery, I was severely out of pocket for that. That was a life-saving procedure, and I was severely out of pocket for that.
Let's just stop and talk about that. Like that you're going through that now. How much have you lost?
It's over 100 kilos.
Whoa, whoa. And your journey's still going on with that. How are you feeling now that you've made that major step?
I put a lot of weight on because I had depression, and obviously I was suppressing of gender dysphoria. I was suppressing my identity for a long time. And it was a self-destructive issue that caused eating disorders, resulted in me getting up to 249 kilos at my worst. So I decided to draw a line in the sand one day and to address it. I went and spoke to a surgeon. I made a date. Then, this is during COVID. I made the decision to do it in China before I came back, but I made it all happen since I came back to Australia and I was living in Townsville. I set a date, and then I worked really hard for several months to lose as much weight as I possibly could to get it under 200 kilos, because that's the limit for what surgeons will operate at.
Oh, okay.
So did that. Then I had a procedure called a sleeve gastrectomy, where they cut out 80% of your stomach. So basically I'm permanently calorie deprived now. I can't eat more than half the size of a fist at any one time. It takes a long time for me to eat anything.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it's changed my relationship with food, changed the speed I can eat, things like this. Obviously, I've lost weight progressively. I still have weight to lose. I'm not lying. It's a process. It's going to take a very long time.
Yep.
But and then I'll have to have another procedure to remove the excess skin, because it's like blowing up a balloon. It never goes back to where it came from. But I'm doing this simultaneously and concurrently with my transitioning. I started at the same time. So I started HRT at the same time as I had my surgery. So I've gone basically from a morbidly obese, terribly unhappy male presenting individual to losing a lot of weight, and now female presenting and living authentically.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So you were saying that the cost of that, but there is certain costs that we the governments can't cover as well. So there's certain procedures that unfortunately the individual has to pay for. But you think differently?
Absolutely. There are other countries in the world where things like this are paid for.
Okay.
Nordic countries like Sweden, whatnot, they pay for the gender affirming care because it's such a small minority of the population, and it is viewed so important. There's a lot of trans people that commit suicide because they can't affirm their gender, and this is terrible. It's needless death. It costs very little for these people to live authentically. But that's not just that. That's just from the perspective of a transgender person. There's other things as well, like dental care or eye care. All the things people now, that's necessities to live. It costs a lot of money. Like health insurance is exorbitantly expensive.
Yep.
It shouldn't be like that.
Yep.
Healthcare, essential living requirements should be free, should be provided by the state.
Wouldn't the taxes go up? And in those like Nordic countries, as you were saying, they pay really high tax, but they get all that for free. But wouldn't there be an outcry if the taxes went up to cover it?
I'm talking about a redistribution of taxes. So changing the way where taxes are collected. So if you increase the GST, for instance, from 10% to say like 40%, everyone pays for it. The individual pays, so everything will go up in price. But the big corporations and the millionaires and whatnot also have to pay for it. And they can't get out of it by paying their accountants to find every single loophole in the legal system to get out of paying tax. And it goes to the states directly. All right, so that is guaranteed income. And then you lower income tax. So you raise the tax-free threshold. A lot of people are finding they're having problems now because there was a temporary taxation relief a few years ago, which is now expired, and now everyone's suddenly finding that they have to owe the tax department money. But if you raise the threshold from about 18,000, I think it is, to 50,000, 60,000, people are earning less than that, shouldn't be paying tax. They pay enough through their rates, so through GST. There's taxes on everything, on taxes on fuel. It's everywhere you go, there's taxes. All right, so income tax should go down. So it will and also increase. I'll put another tax bracket on the top. Obviously, this isn't up to an individual. Even if you head of state couldn't even do this. This is something that Parliament needs to do.
Yeah.
But these are the kind of things I would aspire for and work for, so that the people who have money, the corporations that have the money and hoard the money, pay their fair share, and the people who don't have the money, they pay less because they're not in a position to pay it.
Thank you so much for sharing so much today. Can't wait to see your journey from here. It's been such a pleasure meeting you. Evalyn Venture, thank you so much for chatting with me.
No, thank you for having me.
I'm David Hunt. I'm going now, so see you folks, and I'll be back. Yeah, you're going to pull up with me one day soon. See ya.